Title: The Hero from a Universe Next Door. The final dungeon boss collapsed in a shower of light and fading particles as the victorious party stood in stunned silence. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then the voice chat exploded. "We actually did it! Oh my gosh! No way! Sarek, you're the best!" Mitchell Kelly chuckled in his chair as he removed one hand from his keyboard and took a sip of soda. On the screen, his character, Sarek, stood calmly with his massive sword resting on his shoulder. "Good job, everyone," Mitchell said through his headset. "You all did great. But we only survived because of you." "No," Mitchell replied with a smile. "You survived because you listened and learned. By the time you hit max level, you'll be helping new players yourselves." The group laughed. They had met only a week ago. For brand new players completely lost in Mythic Realms Online, they had expected insults or to be ignored. Instead, one of the most respected players in the game had spent several evenings helping them. Mitchell opened his inventory. "All right, before I head off for the night." The new players gasped. "Wait. Those are legendary blacksmith items. Sarek, you can't." Mitchell grinned. "Sure I can." One by one, he traded equipment he had personally forged. A beautiful bow for the ranger. A staff for the mage. Armor for the warrior. A shield for the paladin. Items that would cost millions of gold from other players. Think of them as graduation presents. "Sarek, you didn't have to do that." "Of course I did," Mitchell said. "No point in having all this stuff if it just sits in storage." Then he opened the guild bank. 4 piles of gold appeared. "What? No way! Sarek! This is enough for a mid-tier mount." Mitchell laughed. "Exactly. But that's thousands of gold. Money comes and goes." One of the players spoke up. "Why are you always so nice?" Mitchell leaned back in his chair. "When I started, someone helped me. So now I help others. Simple as that." For another hour, he answered questions. He explained skill rotations. Showed them how to maximize their classes. Discussed crafting. Shared secrets he'd learned over years of playing. Eventually, the clock approached midnight. Mitchell smiled. "All right, everyone. I should get some sleep. See you tomorrow, Sarek. Thanks again. Night, everyone." "Good night, guys." As the others logged off, Mitchell removed his hands from the keyboard and stretched. Outside, rain battered the windows. Thunder rumbled in the distance. The room flashed briefly with lightning. Mitchell smiled to himself. Another good day. Another group of happy players. As he reached for his headset, a voice spoke. Not through the game. Not through his computer. Not through his headphones. A woman's voice. Gentle. Warm. Ancient. And impossibly powerful. "Greeting, Mitchell." Mitchell froze. "Huh! I am Marra of the Forge." His eyes widened. "What? I have watched you. I have seen your kindness. I have seen your compassion. I have seen your good deeds." Mitchell sat upright. "What in the world? A real world needs your help. I am sending you there. So you can make big changes from all your good deeds." "Wait. What?" A blinding yellow light erupted outside. Crack. Lightning struck the house. The computer. The desk. Mitchell himself. The room vanished beneath a storm of gold and yellow energy. His monitor exploded into countless glowing particles. A vast golden portal opened in front of him. Mitchell barely had time to shout, "Hey, Then the universe disappeared. Several hours later, birds chirped. Warm sunlight touched his face. Mitchell groaned. "Ugh! Grass. Soft grass." Slowly opening his eyes, he found himself lying atop a small hill overlooking endless forests and distant mountains. Blue skies stretched overhead. No ceiling. No walls. No computer. No house. No internet. No. He sat up. No, no, no. His eyes widened. I'm outside. Looking down, he realized he was dressed in simple black leather armor. Beside him lay a plain-looking two-handed sword, and hanging from his belt was a brown pouch. Memories suddenly flooded his mind. The bag of infinity. Weightless. Impossible to steal. Unlimited storage. His bracers. The souls of the forge. Microspells. Their functions. Marra's blessings. Everything. Mitchell blinked. Then looked around again. He stared at the mountains. The forests. The clouds. The birds. Silence. After nearly a minute, he scratched the back of his head. Well, this is going to be interesting. And somewhere, beyond the mortal world itself, 21 Creator God smiled. Because the hero from a universe next door had finally arrived. Mitchell slowly opened his eyes as warm sunlight shone upon his face. Birds sang overhead. A cool breeze rustled the grass around him. For a moment, he simply lay there. Then he stretched. Man, I haven't slept that good in years. His eyes wandered down the hill. And froze. At the bottom sat a village. Smoke rose lazily from chimneys. People moved through the streets. Children played. Farmers worked the nearby fields. And surrounded by the distant mountains and forests, the peaceful little settlement looked like something straight out of a painting. Mitchell blinked. No way. He rubbed his eyes. No way. The village remained. Well. He stood up and dusted himself off. I guess Marra wasn't kidding. After adjusting the bag of infinity on his belt and picking up his simple two-handed sword, Mitchell began walking down the hill. A dirt road eventually appeared. And beside it stood a wooden sign. Welcome to Marra's gaze. Mitchell stopped. Then laughed. Of course she'd name a village after herself. Smiling, he continued onward. As he entered the village, the first person he noticed was a town guard standing beside the gate. The guard appeared to be a human man in chainmail armor and looked to be in his 40s. Mitchell smiled warmly. Good morning, officer. The guard smiled back. Morning to you too, traveler. Mitchell scratched the back of his head. Could I ask where the local inn is? Certainly. The guard pointed down the main road. Follow this street until you see the Fountain Square. The Silver Acorn Inn is just beyond it. Thank you very much. You're welcome. The guard chuckled. New around here? Just arrived. Well then, welcome to Marra's gaze. Mitchell smiled. Thank you. As he walked further into town, he couldn't help but stare at everything. The buildings. The market stalls. The blacksmith shop. The smell of fresh bread. The sound of wagons rolling over cobblestones. Vendors calling out to customers. It was all real. Not pixels. Not a game. Another world. He looked up at the blue sky and smiled. I'm really here. Nearby, an elderly woman sold flowers. A pair of children chased each other through the square. A baker waved at passing customers. Mitchell simply shook his head in amazement. This is incredible. Then, he stopped. Standing near a fruit vendor was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Long white hair. Blue skin. Graceful pointed ears. A leather and metal outfit that marked her as an adventurer. And eyes. Beautiful violet eyes. For a moment, time seemed to slow. She was inspecting apples while speaking to the elderly vendor, and Mitchell couldn't help but notice the gentle smile she wore. Then he noticed something else. Kindness. It was in her eyes. The old woman selling fruit laughed at something she said. The beautiful elf woman smiled and helped the elderly vendor stack several boxes that had nearly fallen over. Mitchell smiled. Not because she was beautiful, though she certainly was, but because he could see the kindness in her eyes. At that moment, the woman looked up. Their eyes met. Mitchell smiled and politely nodded. The beautiful elf woman blinked in surprise, then smiled softly and nodded back. Neither spoke. And after a moment, she continued shopping. Mitchell stood there for another second. then quietly continued walking. His cheeks were slightly red. Wow! He smiled to himself. What a beautiful woman! Then he laughed softly. And she seems really nice too. Unaware that he had just met Sapphire Shale. And equally unaware that the beautiful dark elf woman had paused in her shopping and was secretly watching him walk away. Curious. Because unlike most people, the handsome stranger had smiled. Not with fear. Not with suspicion. Just kindness. And for some reason she couldn't explain. That made her smile. Mitchell followed the directions the guard had given him, and soon found himself standing before a large 2-story building with a polished wooden sign hanging above the entrance. The Silver Acorn Inn. The smell of fresh bread and sizzling meat drifted through the air. Mitchell smiled. Smells good. Opening the door, he stepped inside. Immediately, dozens of conversations filled the room. The common room was already busy. Farmers sat enjoying breakfast before beginning their day. Travelers chatted with merchants. A few adventurers in leather armor laughed over mugs of juice and coffee. Several people looked up as the newcomer entered. Mitchell smiled warmly. Good morning. A few patrons blinked. Then several smiled back. Morning! Good morning, traveler. Welcome. Mitchell nodded politely and walked toward the counter. Standing behind it was a woman in her 30s with chestnut hair and a cheerful smile. She looked up. Good morning. Good morning, Mitchell replied. The woman smiled. Need a room? Yes, please. For how long? Mitchell thought for a moment. 1 week, if that's all right. Certainly. After paying in advance, the innkeeper nodded approvingly. Room 7, second floor. Mitchell smiled. Thank you very much. Anything else? Mitchell's stomach answered before he could growl. The innkeeper laughed. The house specialty breakfast? Mitchell laughed nervously. Yes, please. Find yourself a seat and I'll be with you in just a moment. Thank you. Mitchell found an empty table near one of the windows. As he sat down, he quietly marveled at the fact that he could understand everyone perfectly. Not just understand. Read. Write. Speak. Every language. Marra's blessings truly were incredible. Still, he wasn't going to question a good thing. He simply enjoyed the pleasant atmosphere. Nearby, 2 old men debated fishing. A little girl proudly showed her father a flower she had found. A merchant was trying unsuccessfully to convince an adventurer to buy a map. Mitchell smiled. This place feels nice. A few moments later, the innkeeper approached his table. My name's Clara, by the way. Mitchell. Pleasure to meet you. She set down a mug of hot tea. So, Mitchell, you're new around here? Mitchell nodded. Just arrived. Clara chuckled. Well, Marra's Gaze isn't the biggest village around, but it's peaceful. It seems very nice. We like it that way. Mitchell smiled. I can see why. Clara lowered her voice slightly. If you're looking for work, the Adventurers Guild is just down the road. Mitchell blinked. There's actually an Adventurers Guild? Clara laughed. Of course there is. Mitchell smiled. That's convenient. You an adventurer? Sort of. She raised an eyebrow. Sort of? Mitchell scratched the back of his head. I'm figuring things out. Clara laughed again. Fair enough. A few minutes later she returned carrying a large plate. There we are. Mitchell's eyes widened. Ham. Eggs. Fresh bread. And some kind of sautéed vegetables that smelled amazing. Wow. Clara grinned. House specialty. Mitchell smiled. Thank you. Enjoy. The first bite nearly made him close his eyes. The eggs were fluffy. The ham was savory. The bread was still warm. And whatever vegetables they used, they were delicious. Wow. Clara smiled proudly. Good? Very good. Glad to hear it. Mitchell happily continued eating. As he did, his eyes wandered out the window. And across the street. He caught a glimpse of long white hair, blue skin, beautiful pointed ears. The same lovely elf woman he had seen earlier. She was carrying groceries while helping an elderly woman cross the road. Mitchell smiled. She really is kind. Then he returned to his breakfast, completely unaware that the beautiful dark elf had already noticed him sitting by the window. And once again, she found herself wondering about the handsome stranger with the gentle smile. Because unlike everyone else, he had looked at her and smiled, as though seeing a dark elf was the most normal thing in the world. After finishing the last bite of breakfast, Mitchell sat back in his chair with a contented sigh. Miss Clara? The innkeeper smiled as she approached. Yes? Mitchell grinned. I think I could live off your cooking. Clara laughed. That's one way to compliment the chef. I'm serious. That was delicious. Glad you enjoyed it. Mitchell stood. And I think I'll take your advice. Oh? I'm going to register at the Adventurers Guild and see if there are any jobs that need doing. Clara nodded approvingly. Not a bad idea. Besides, sitting around all day doesn't feel right. She smiled. Good man. Mitchell laughed. Thank you again for breakfast. You're welcome. He picked up his sword. See you later, Miss Clara. See you later, Mitchell. As he left, Clara smiled to herself. Such a nice young man. The morning sun shone brightly over Marra's gaze. Mitchell slowly made his way through the village streets. Everything still fascinated him. The smell of fresh bread. The sound of chickens. A blacksmith hammering away at his forge. Children running through the streets laughing. Several people smiled and waved at him. And Mitchell waved back. Good morning. Morning! Beautiful day. Sure is. He couldn't help but smile. Everyone here seems so nice. He passed a pair of guards helping an old farmer push a wagon, a cat sleeping in the shade, and an elderly woman struggling with several baskets. Without hesitation, Mitchell walked over. Allow me. Oh my dearie, you don't have to. It's no trouble. The old woman blinked. The baskets suddenly felt feather-light. Strong young man, aren't you? Mitchell laughed nervously. Farm work. Hum. The elderly woman smiled knowingly. Thank you, young man. You're welcome. Eventually, a large stone building came into view. A sign above the entrance displayed a sword and shield. Beneath it were the words, Marra's Gaze Adventurers Guild. Mitchell stopped. Then smiled. No way. He actually laughed. There really is an Adventurers Guild. People entered and exited the building constantly. Merchants. Adventurers. Hunters. Mages. Even a few demi-humans. Voices and laughter spilled out from within. Mitchell took a deep breath. All right, Mitchell. New world. New life. Let's do this. Opening the doors, he stepped inside. Immediately, dozens of conversations filled the room. Quest boards lined the walls. Tables were packed with adventurers eating lunch and swapping stories. Several armored warriors argued over monster sizes. A pair of mages discussed spells. Waitresses moved between tables carrying drinks. And behind a long counter sat several receptionists helping people register quests. Mitchell's eyes widened. This is exactly like the games. He smiled. This is awesome. Then, several adventurers glanced toward the entrance. A few women looked twice. One man muttered, "Who's the new guy?" Another chuckled. "Looks like some noble's son." Mitchell, completely oblivious, smiled warmly. "Good morning, everyone." Several people blinked. Then a few waved. "Morning! Welcome!" And one old dwarf sitting near the bar laughed loudly. "Ha! Nice manners, lad!" Mitchell smiled. "Thank you, sir." And with that, the hero from a universe next door walked toward the registration counter, completely unaware that fate had another meeting planned for him. Because somewhere in the guild hall, a certain beautiful blue-skinned dark elf with long white hair had just returned from a successful quest. and she had already noticed the handsome newcomer. The moment Mitchell stepped into the Adventurers Guild, he felt as though he had walked into one of the towns from mythic realms online. Voices filled the large room. Quest boards covered one wall. Adventurers sat at tables sharing stories and enjoying late breakfasts. Waitresses moved between tables carrying drinks and food. Behind a long counter, several guild clerks worked diligently helping customers. Mitchell smiled. This is awesome. He wasn't trying to hide his excitement. He really was excited. Several adventurers looked toward the entrance. Some nodded. One dwarf raised his mug. Morning, lad! Mitchell smiled. Good morning, sir. The old dwarf laughed. Polite one, ain't he? A nearby waitress giggled. Mitchell walked over to the registration counter. The young receptionist smiled. Good morning. Welcome to the Adventurers Guild of Marra's Gaze. Good morning. My name is Emily. How may I help you? I'd like to register as an adventurer. Certainly. She reached beneath the counter. First time? Yes. Emily smiled. Wonderful. We always need more good adventurers. As she prepared the paperwork, the front doors opened. Several muddy adventurers entered. A few people smiled. Morning, Sapphire. Back already? How'd the goblin quest go? Standing near the entrance was the beautiful white-haired woman Mitchell had seen earlier. Long flowing white hair. Blue skin. Graceful pointed ears. Leather armor. A bow across her back. Twin short swords at her waist. And those beautiful violet eyes. Mitchell smiled. Hey, it's her. Sapphire's shale blinked. The handsome traveler. The same man who had smiled and nodded in the market. And the same man she had spotted eating breakfast through the inn window. Their eyes met. Mitchell smiled warmly. Good morning. Sapphire smiled back. Good morning. Nearby conversations suddenly became quieter. Not because anyone disliked Sapphire, but because everyone expected the handsome newcomer to react the same way strangers usually did. Fear. Suspicion. Discomfort. Instead, Mitchell simply smiled as though speaking with a beautiful elf woman was the most normal thing in the world. Looks like we're running into each other a lot. Sapphire laughed softly. It would seem so. Her voice was gentle, beautiful, and surprisingly warm. Mitchell scratched the back of his head. I'm Mitchell. Sapphire. It's nice to meet you. You as well. Emily nearly stopped writing. The old dwarf slowly lowered his mug. And several adventurers glanced at each other. Because the dark elf beauty who most people avoided was smiling. Actually smiling. Not her polite smile. Not her I'm used to this smile. A genuine smile. Sapphire noticed their expressions and inwardly sighed. Here we go again. But then Mitchell spoke. That's a beautiful name. Sapphire blinked. Thank you. And your hair is really pretty. Several mugs nearly fell from people's hands. Sapphire's cheeks turned slightly purple. Tea, thank you. Mitchell smiled. No problem. Then he turned back to Emily. So, where do I sign? The entire guild hall stared. Sapphire stared. And the old dwarf burst out laughing. Ha ha ha! Mitchell looked confused. Ha! The dwarf wiped tears from his eyes. Nothing, lad. Nothing at all. Sapphire couldn't help herself. She giggled. A genuine giggle. One that few people had ever heard. Mitchell turned back and smiled. I'm glad you're happy. Sapphire felt her heart skip. He wasn't flirting. He wasn't teasing. He was simply happy that she was smiling. And for some strange reason, that made her smile even more. Meanwhile, far above the mortal world, 21 creator gods watched. And Marra of the Forge smiled knowingly. Good. Very good. Now let nature take its course. And beside her, another creator god chuckled. I give them 3 months before she's calling him an idiot while kissing him. Marra laughed. 6. The other 20 gods began placing bets. None of them noticed that one goddess had already wagered on grandchildren. Mitchell happily finished filling out his registration paperwork. Emily smiled as she handed him a bronze adventurer badge. Congratulations, Mr. Mitchell. You're officially a bronze rank adventurer. Mitchell smiled. Thank you. The old dwarf nearby raised his mug. Congratulations, lad. Thank you, sir. Sapphire couldn't help but smile. He really was polite to everyone. Emily then pointed toward the large quest board. Feel free to look around. New adventurers usually start with gathering herbs, lost pets, or package deliveries. Mitchell nodded. All right. As he walked toward the board, Sapphire watched him curiously. Something about him bothered her. Not in a bad way. His movements. His posture. The way he walked. He looked experienced. Almost like a veteran warrior. Yet his adventurer badge was brand new. Mitchell reached the board. So many quests. He smiled. This really is another world. After looking through several papers, one caught his attention. Giant killer bee extermination. Threat level C. Location: Southern Forest, 2 miles from Marra's gaze. Reward: 15 silver. Bonus reward for each corpse recovered. Additional reward for returning hive intact. Recommended party: 3 moderately skilled adventurers. Mitchell blinked. Giant bees? He thought for a moment. Bees that big could hurt somebody. Then he smiled. I'd better take care of them. He removed the quest slip. Immediately, several nearby adventurers froze. What? He's taking that? By himself? The old dwarf nearly choked on his drink. By yourself? Mitchell looked confused. Yes? The dwarf stared. Lad, that's a 3-person quest. Mitchell scratched his head. Oh. Well? He smiled. I'm pretty good with a sword. Several adventurers exchanged looks. The dwarf laughed. Well, confidence is important, I suppose. Across the room, Sapphire nearly dropped her tea. By himself. She had done that quest before. Those giant bees were dangerous. Their stingers alone could kill someone. Her ears twitched. No. Absolutely not. That handsome fool was not getting himself killed. Half an hour later, Mitchell stood in the southern forest. Birds chirped overhead. Sunlight filtered through the trees. Beautiful place. Then, bzzzzzzzzzzz. His eyes widened. Holy smokes! About 20 giant bees emerged from between the trees. Each one was nearly the size of a human. Their stingers glistened. Mitchell blinked. Wow! Those are bigger than I expected. Bzzzzzzzzz. One charged. Mitchell sidestepped. His body moved almost effortlessly. Shunk! The plain 2-handed sword flashed. The giant bee split cleanly in half. Mitchell blinked. The corpse hit the ground. Oh. That was easier than I thought. Bzzzzzzz. 5 more attacked. Mitchell smiled nervously. Sorry, ladies. But you're attacking people. Whoosh. His body blurred. Shunk. 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 5 more giant bees fell. Mitchell stopped. Wow. I'm stronger than I thought. Hidden behind some bushes, Sapphire Shale's mouth hung open. She had followed him. Not because she was nosy. No. Because she thought the handsome idiot would need help. Instead, she was witnessing a massacre. 1 man. 1 ordinary sword. 6 giant killer bees dead. Without a scratch. And he looked confused. Who in the world is this man? Bzzzzzzzzzzzzzzz. The rest of the hive attacked. Mitchell sighed. All right. Let's get this over with. His bracers glowed faintly. The souls of the forge. Suddenly. Whoosh. He became a blur. Almost invisible. Shunk. Shunk. Shunk! 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 Bee corpses began raining from the sky. 30 seconds later. Silence. 20 dead giant bees lay scattered around the clearing. Mitchell sheathed his sword. Sorry. You really shouldn't attack people. Hidden in the bushes. Sapphire nearly burst out laughing. He apologized. He apologized to giant killer bees. What kind of man apologizes to monsters? Then Mitchell spotted the hive. Bonus reward if returned intact. He thought for a moment. Then smiled. I know. His eyes drifted upward. Ground 1. The branch supporting the hive crumbled into powder. The giant hive began to fall. A port. The massive hive suddenly slowed and floated gently downward. Sapphire's eyes widened. What? No chanting? No hand signs? No magic circle? Instant casting. What kind of spell was that? Then, Mitchell looked toward the bushes. Miss Sapphire? Her heart nearly stopped. Eep! She stood up immediately. I wasn't spying! Mitchell smiled warmly. No problem. No problem. 20 giant bees lay dead around him. Not a scratch on him. And he says no problem. He pointed toward the hive. I've got a lot to carry. Could you help me? Sapphire simply stared. This man had just defeated 20 giant killer bees by himself. And now, he was asking for help. Not showing off. Not bragging. Asking. Her beautiful violet eyes blinked. Then she smiled. Certainly. Mitchell smiled back. Thank you? And Sapphire's shell couldn't help but think. This man is either the strongest fool I've ever met. Or the nicest monster. She wasn't sure which. But one thing was certain. Mitchell Kelly was going to be very interesting. Sapphire slowly approached the battlefield. 20 giant killer bees. Every one of them killed cleanly. And Mitchell himself? Not a scratch. The handsome fool simply smiled. Thank you for helping. Sapphire blinked. Helping? Mitchell nodded. Of course. She looked around. Mitchell, I didn't help. Sure you did. When? You watched my back. Sapphire stared. He wasn't teasing. He genuinely meant it. And somehow, that made her smile. Mitchell looked around at the pile of bee corpses. There's too many. He scratched his head. I'd need a wagon. Sapphire nodded. Probably. Then she watched as Mitchell reached for the pouch on his belt. One by one, bee corpses disappeared. Into the pouch. Her eyes widened. Wait. 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 Storage magic. He has storage magic. And that much. Within a minute all 20 corpses had vanished. Mitchell smiled. There. Sapphire blinked several times. Impressive. Mitchell laughed nervously. It's handy. 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 That pouch could bankrupt kingdoms. They then turned toward the hive. Sapphire's eyes lit up. Oh. Wait. Don't put that in yet. The honey and reagents. Mitchell tilted his head. Reagents? Royal jelly. Wax. Honey. Venom sacs. Magic pollen. She smiled proudly. Beehives are worth almost as much as the quest reward itself. Mitchell blinked. Really? Really? Then she spent several minutes carefully wrapping the hive in cloth and leaves. Mitchell listened attentively. So that's how you preserve it? She nodded. Exactly. This way nothing spills. Mitchell smiled. Thank you. You're welcome. No, really. You taught me something valuable. Sapphire's ears twitched slightly. Not many people thanked her for things. Most simply accepted her help. Yet Mitchell seemed genuinely grateful. The walk back to Marra's gaze was peaceful. They talked. Mostly about harmless things. Favorite foods. Funny guild stories. The weather. Mitchell laughed several times. And Sapphire found herself smiling more than usual. He really was easy to talk to. When they entered the Adventurers Guild. Silence. The old dwarf blinked. No. Several adventurers stood up. No. Emily's eyes widened. No. And Clara, who had stopped by to deliver pastries, nearly dropped the basket. No. Mitchell smiled. Good afternoon, everyone. Everyone stared. Not because Mitchell was alive, but because he was smiling. Beside him was Sapphire Shale. And she was smiling too. The old dwarf whispered. Impossible. Mitchell approached Emily. Quest complete. Emily blinked. The giant bees? Yes. And Miss Sapphire helped me. Sapphire blinked. I did. Mitchell nodded. Absolutely. You showed me how to preserve the hive and taught me about all the reagents. He smiled. So I'd like half the reward to go to her. Sapphire's eyes widened. Mitchell, I don't need. I insist. But you earned it. Emily smiled softly. Very well. Sapphire simply stared. Most adventurers fought over money, argued over rewards, cheated each other. And this man, this strange, handsome man, wanted to give away half his reward, because she taught him something. Then Mitchell reached into his pouch. One by one, 20 giant killer bees appeared. Thud, 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 thud. The guild hall froze. Thud, 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 thud. The old dwarf lowered his mug. Emily stopped breathing. Thud, 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 thud. 20 giant killer bee corpses. Perfect condition. Then Mitchell gently set down the hive. The entire room was silent. Finally, the old dwarf stood up, walked over, examined a bee, then another, then the hive. He turned, looked at Mitchell, looked at Sapphire, looked back at Mitchell, and asked the question everyone was thinking. Son, just how strong are you? Mitchell smiled. Oh, not that strong. The old dwarf burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha. He laughed so hard tears formed. Everyone else soon joined in. Even Sapphire giggled. Because after witnessing what she had seen, that answer was absolutely ridiculous. Meanwhile, far above the world, Marra sat beside several creator gods. One god smiled. He gave away half the reward. Another laughed. He really is incapable of thinking about himself. Marra smiled proudly. Exactly why we chose him. Then another creator god pointed downward. Oh? All 21 gods looked. And smiled. Because while laughing, Sapphire had unconsciously moved closer to Mitchell. And her tail, if dark elves had tails, would have been wagging. The laughter in the guild hall slowly died down. Mitchell simply smiled. He wasn't entirely sure what was so funny, but everyone seemed to be in a good mood, which made him happy. Emily finished counting the rewards. Mr. Mitchell. Yes? The total reward, including the hive, honey, royal jelly, venom sacs, and all 20 bee corpses comes to... Her eyes widened. 26 silver and 40 copper. The guild hall collectively whistled. That's a lot. Mitchell blinked. It is? Emily smiled. It most certainly is. Mitchell nodded. Wonderful. He pointed toward Sapphire. Half for Miss Sapphire, please. Sapphire sighed. Mitchell. No arguments. But you earned it. She smiled helplessly. Very well. The old dwarf sitting at the bar laughed. Lass, I'd stop arguing. You'll be here all day. Everyone chuckled. As Emily handed Sapphire her share, several adventurers approached Mitchell. One was a burly man in chainmail. You really did that quest alone? Mitchell scratched his cheek. Well, Miss Sapphire helped. The adventurer blinked. But... He looked toward Sapphire. Didn't you just follow him? Sapphire blushed. I was observing. The guild hall exploded into laughter again. Even Sapphire began laughing. Mitchell smiled. See? Watching my back. The old dwarf slammed his mug onto the table. By the gods, lad, if being watched counts as help, I should be rich. More laughter erupted. As the crowd settled down, Emily suddenly remembered something. Oh! She reached under the counter. Mitchell. Yes? Since you've already completed a C-rank quest, Guildmaster Boren would like to speak with you. Mitchell blinked. The Guildmaster? Nothing serious. The old dwarf raised his mug. Ha! Good luck, lad. Mitchell smiled. Thank you. Then he looked toward Sapphire. Miss Sapphire, thank you again. She smiled. You're welcome. I'll see you around? To her surprise, she found herself smiling more brightly than she intended. I hope so. Mitchell smiled. Me too. Then he followed Emily upstairs. A few moments later, the guild hall exploded. He said he hoped to see her again. She said she hoped so too. Did you see her smile? Clara nearly squealed. She's smiling. The waitress beside her nodded excitedly. She's actually smiling. The old dwarf laughed. Ha! Someone tell me I'm not dreaming. Sapphire covered her face with her hands. Oh, by the gods! Her ears had turned purple. I merely enjoy speaking with him. Uh-huh. Sure you do. Completely innocent. The entire guild hall grinned. And Sapphire groaned. You're all impossible. Upstairs, Mitchell entered a comfortable office. Bookshelves lined the walls. Maps covered one side of the room. Behind a large desk sat a broad-shouldered dwarf with a magnificent gray beard. The dwarf looked up from his paperwork. His sharp blue eyes examined Mitchell. Then, he smiled warmly. Come in, lad. Mitchell smiled. Good afternoon, sir. The dwarf chuckled. Good manners, too. I like that. My name is Boren Ironbeard, Guildmaster of Marra's Gaze. Mitchell bowed slightly. My name is Mitchell Kelly. Boren leaned back. Well, lad? I hear you completed a 3-man quest. Mitchell nodded. Yes, sir. By yourself? Miss Sapphire helped. Boren burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha. So I've heard. He wiped away tears. Son, half the guild has already informed me that Sapphire's contribution consisted mainly of hiding in bushes. Mitchell looked surprised. That's not true. Boren raised an eyebrow. No? She taught me how to preserve the hive and reagents. And I learned something. So she deserved half. The old dwarf froze. Then his smile softened. Aye, she did. For a moment Boren simply looked at the young man. Then inwardly thought. By the forge. He's genuine. Not showing off. Not trying to impress anyone. He's really like this. And for the first time in many years, Guildmaster Boren Ironbeard found himself smiling. Because something told him. Life in Marra's Gaze had just become very interesting. Guildmaster Boren Ironbeard smiled warmly. Aye, lad. Sapphire deserved her share. Mitchell smiled. I'm glad you agree. Boren leaned back in his chair. And I have to say, most adventurers argue over every copper. You gave away half your reward because she taught you something. Mitchell shrugged. Seems fair to me. The old dwarf simply smiled. You're a strange one. Mitchell laughed. So I've been told. For nearly half an hour they talked. Boren explained the guild ranks. Bronze. Iron. Steel. Silver. Gold. Platinum. And the legendary Mithril rank. Mitchell listened carefully. By the end of their conversation, Boren had come to one conclusion. This young man wasn't putting on an act. He really was humble. And strangely enough, that made Boren trust him. Eventually Mitchell stood. It has been a pleasure speaking with you, Guildmaster. Boren smiled. And you as well, lad. Mitchell offered his hand. The dwarf chuckled and shook it. Then, Boren froze. His eyes widened. His cheerful expression disappeared. The color drained from his face. Mitchell blinked. Guildmaster? Boren slowly turned Mitchell's hand upward. On the center of his right palm was a birthmark. An anvil, with a lightning bolt passing through it. Boren's eyes widened. By the forge. He knows not. Guildmaster? Boren looked up. His voice was quiet. Lad, do you know what this birthmark means? Mitchell looked down. Huh. Didn't have that yesterday. He looked back up. No. What does it mean? Boren slowly released his hand. For a moment, the old dwarf seemed almost emotional. It means. His voice became reverent. You are chosen by Marra, the goddess of the forge herself. Mitchell blinked. Really? Boren nodded. Not blessed. Not favored. Chosen. Mitchell scratched his head. Huh. The dwarf almost fell out of his chair. Huh. Lad. Kings have fought wars hoping for less. Mitchell laughed nervously. Sorry. I'm still trying to process this whole another world thing. Boren stared. Then suddenly burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha. By the forge, I like you. He wiped tears from his eyes. Listen carefully, Mitchell Kelly. The old dwarf's expression softened. I now expect great things from you. Mitchell smiled awkwardly. I'll do my best. Boren shook his head. No. Not great things. World-changing things. History-changing things. And I suspect. His eyes narrowed. You've only just begun. Mitchell shifted uncomfortably. Could you? Keep this between us? Boren blinked. What? I don't want to be in the limelight. The old dwarf stared. Then laughed harder than ever. Ha 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 ha. Of course you don't. Marra herself chooses you and your first thought is to stay out of the spotlight. Mitchell smiled sheepishly. Please? The guildmaster smiled. I can do that. Then Boren rubbed his beard. Get yourself some leather gloves. Mitchell blinked. Gloves? Hide the mark. Not everyone in this world would rejoice to see it. Some would worship you. Others would fear you. And some fools, his expression darkened, would try to control you. Mitchell nodded. Good point. I'll get some. Boren smiled. And Mitchell? Yes? Never be ashamed of that mark. Marra's chosen appear perhaps once every several thousand years. And from everything I've seen. His eyes softened. She chose well. Mitchell smiled. Thank you. As Mitchell turned to leave, Boren called out. Lad. Mitchell turned. Yes? The old dwarf smiled knowingly. That dark elf lass. Sapphire. Mitchell blinked. Miss Sapphire? Aye. She's one of the finest people I've ever known. Mitchell smiled. I thought so. Boren chuckled. Did you now? I could see it in her eyes. Boren froze. What? Kindness. She has kind eyes. The old dwarf sat back in his chair. By the forge. He noticed. Not her beauty. Not her race. Her heart. And suddenly Boren's smile became absolutely enormous. Well, perhaps Marra truly does work in mysterious ways. Mitchell scratched his head. Huh! Nothing, lad. Nothing at all. After Mitchell left, Boren sat quietly. Then he stood. Walked over to a small shrine in the corner of his office. A simple anvil rested upon it. The old dwarf knelt. And for the first time in 30 years, Guildmaster Boren Ironbeard prayed. Lady Marra? You old smith. I don't know what you're planning. But thank you. He reminds me. His voice trembled. Of why I became an adventurer. Then he smiled. And between you and me, the dark elf lass deserves some happiness too. Above the mortal world. Marra herself smiled, and quietly whispered, "Agreed," while behind her, the other 20 creator gods resumed their betting. After leaving Guildmaster Boren's office, Mitchell descended the stairs with a smile on his face. He had liked the old dwarf very much. He's a good man. As he entered the main hall once again, Emily looked up from her paperwork. "Oh, Mr. Mitchell!" Mitchell smiled. "Good afternoon, Miss Emily." Emily smiled back. "Good afternoon. I was wondering if I could ask you something." "Of course. Do you know where I might find someone selling houses and land?" Emily blinked. "Houses?" Mitchell nodded. "I'd like a place just outside of town." "Outside?" "Yes." She tilted her head. "Why outside?" Mitchell scratched his cheek. "I'd like to do some blacksmithing. And I don't want to wake anyone up if I'm working late." Emily smiled. That sounds exactly like something he'd say. "Well, in that case, you should speak with Mrs. Eleanor Greenfield." "Mrs. Greenfield?" "She's handled properties around Marra's gaze for years." "Do you know where I can find her?" Emily nodded. "Her office is beside the flower shop near the Fountain Square." "Thank you very much." "You're welcome." Then Emily blinked. "Wait. If you're buying a house." She looked surprised. "You plan on staying?" Mitchell smiled. "I think so. This village seems nice." Emily smiled warmly. "I think everyone will be happy to hear that." Mitchell waved. "See you later, Miss Emily." "Good luck, Mr. Mitchell." Before heading toward the Fountain Square, Mitchell remembered something. Leather gloves. He looked down at his right hand. The mark of Marra's chosen. Guildmaster Boren did say to hide it. Soon he spotted a wooden sign hanging above a shop. Hartman Leatherworks. Perfect. As Mitchell entered, the smell of leather greeted him. Belts. Pouches. Boots. Travel packs. Gloves. And behind the counter stood a middle-aged man with spectacles. The man smiled. "Good afternoon." "Good afternoon. What can I do for you?" "I'm looking for a pair of gloves." The shopkeeper nodded. "Work gloves?" "Something comfortable. And sturdy." The man smiled. "Let's see." After several minutes of trying different pairs, Mitchell found them. Black leather. Reinforced on the back. The fingers partially exposed for dexterity. Flexible. Comfortable. Perfect. Mitchell smiled. "I like these." The leatherworker grinned. "Good choice." "Blacksmith?" Mitchell blinked. "How did you know?" The man laughed. "Those are popular with smiths. My name's Harold Hartman. Mitchell Kelly. Pleased to meet you." Mitchell put on the gloves. They fit perfectly. He flexed his fingers. "These are nice." Harold chuckled. "They should last 20 years if treated properly." "I'll take them." As Harold wrapped the purchase, he smiled. "So, Mitchell. Traveler?" "Something like that." "Looking for work?" "Actually." Mitchell smiled. "I'm thinking about buying a house." Harold nearly dropped the gloves. "A house? Already?" Mitchell laughed. "Well, I need a forge." Harold blinked. Then burst out laughing. "Ha! By the gods, I like you. No mansion? No castle?" Mitchell looked confused. "Why would I need a castle?" Harold laughed even harder. "Good answer." After saying goodbye to Harold, Mitchell stepped back into the street. He admired his new gloves. Comfortable. Then smiled. "Now, Mrs. Eleanor Greenfield." Little did Mitchell know. His desire for a humble home and forge was about to lead him to one of the most important places in his life. And somewhere in the village, a certain blue-skinned dark elf was telling her parents about a strange handsome man who had apologized to giant bees. Following Emily's directions, Mitchell eventually arrived at a cozy little office beside a flower shop. The sign above the door read, "Greenfield Properties." "Well," Mitchell smiled. "Here goes." As he entered, a small brass bell rang. Seated behind a desk covered in paperwork was an elderly woman with silver hair tied neatly into a bun. She looked up over her spectacles. "Good afternoon." "Good afternoon, ma'am." The woman smiled. "Oh, such manners. Please sit." Mitchell sat down. "My name is Eleanor Greenfield. Mitchell Kelly. A pleasure. What can I do for you, Mr. Kelly?" "I'm interested in buying a house." Mrs. Greenfield blinked. "Buying?" "Yes. And preferably some land." "Land too?" "Enough room for a forge." The old woman's eyebrows rose. "You're a blacksmith?" Mitchell smiled. "I hope to be." She adjusted her spectacles. "What sort of home are you looking for?" Mitchell thought for a moment. "Nothing fancy. No mansion. No castle. Just somewhere comfortable. And preferably outside town. So I don't disturb anyone if I work late." Mrs. Greenfield simply stared. Then she smiled. Oh my. I know exactly the place." Half an hour later, Mitchell stood before an old but sturdy house. 2 stories. A stone foundation. A large backyard. A well. An apple tree. And his eyes widened. No way. An old forge building. Dusty. And used. But intact. Mitchell practically ran over. "It has a forge." Mrs. Greenfield smiled. "Indeed. The previous owner was a blacksmith. He passed away 20 years ago. No children. No apprentices. The house has remained empty ever since." Mitchell slowly stepped inside. The forge was old. But the anvil remained. The bellows. The chimney. Even some rusted tools. His eyes sparkled. "This is wonderful." Mrs. Greenfield chuckled. "Really? It needs work." Mitchell smiled. "Nothing I can't fix." The elderly woman studied him. Most people had laughed at the property. Wanted something bigger. Nicer. Newer. Yet this handsome young man looked happier than she'd seen anyone in years. "Would you like to see the house?" "Yes, please." 2 bedrooms. A kitchen. A dining room. A living room. A root cellar. Storage space. And a small room that could become a study. Mitchell smiled. "It's perfect." Mrs. Greenfield blinked. "Perfect?" "Yes." "Really?" Mitchell nodded. "I love it." The old woman smiled warmly. "I'm glad. Truth be told, I've been hoping someone kind would buy it." Mitchell looked surprised. "Kind? The old blacksmith who lived here was one of the best men I ever knew. And I didn't want his home going to someone selfish." Mitchell smiled. "I'll take good care of it." For some reason, Mrs. Greenfield felt tears in her eyes. "I believe you." As paperwork was completed, Mitchell became the proud owner of his first home. His first forge. His first piece of land. In another universe. And as he stood in the yard looking at the setting sun, he smiled. Not bad. Not bad at all. Far above the mortal world. Marra smiled. One of the creator gods chuckled. "You arranged this." Marra folded her arms. "No. The house chose him." Another god laughed. "That's not how houses work." Marra smiled knowingly. "Usually." And in the village of Marra's gaze, Sapphire Shale sat at dinner with her parents. William Shale smiled. "So, how was your quest?" Sapphire smiled. "Interesting." Lillian Shale raised an eyebrow. "Oh? There was a new adventurer." William nodded. "Really?" Sapphire smiled. "He's strange." Lillian noticed something immediately. Her daughter was smiling. Actually smiling. Interesting. "Strange how?" she asked innocently. Sapphire thought for a moment. "He apologized to giant bees." William blinked. "What?" Lillian blinked. "What?" "And he insisted I take half the reward." William nearly dropped his spoon. He did? Lillian's eyes narrowed. How old is this young man? Sapphire blinked. Mother! William slowly looked toward his wife, then toward his daughter, then back toward his wife, and silently prayed. Please don't start. Because after 20 years of marriage, William Shale knew that look, and it meant that Lillian Shale had become interested. And heaven help the poor young man she had decided to investigate.